Welcome back to another episode of Catching Up with Coach. It has been a few days, a few important games, and a few important wins. Now, I spoke on Twitter and on Basketball Rewind about the importance of this road trip. Because the East is so close, just a few losses in a row, three or four, you can find yourself in the sixth seed or even the seventh seed. The Raptors did not start off this trip very well with the Lakers. That was one of their worst games of the year. CMB goes down. The whole team just could not play well. They did not shoot the ball well, especially in LA. But Golden State was a completely different story. The Raptors in Golden State, let me just bring up my numbers here for sure. The Raptors shot 62% from the three-point line. Now, for a team that is last in three-point percentage, that is one extreme to the other. They shot 59% from the field and 100% from the free throw line. 100%. I always tell people I think the goal should be 80%, high school, college, or any professional league. But shooting 100% from the free throw line is really good, especially when it's not on your home court. Had 42 assists in the game compared to Golden State's 28 assists. We got to see Steph Curry and Jonathan Kuminga, who obviously has been in a ton of trade rumors. And Kuminga, he was their second leading scorer with 20 points. And I've never quite understood why Steve Kerr does not play him more. He's a twitchy athlete. He's elite athleticism, I would say. Speed, he's got strength. He needs to work on his skills a bit, but there's something there, certainly with Jonathan Kuminga. And I think a team should try to pick him up just to give him a chance. See what you got with him. But the big story for the game against Golden State by far was Emmanuel Quickley. He had a historic night. 40 points, 10 assists, 80% from the field. That was the first time in the game since Wilt Chamberlain. There are NBA records, and then there are like Wilt Chamberlain records. What Quickley did was historic. And the interesting thing is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander basically did that the next night. Unbelievable. But Quickley shot 11 to 13 from the field, perfect from the free throw line, 7 of 8 from 3. Emmanuel Quickley had his best game as a Toronto Raptor and probably his best game in about 3 years. He was unbelievable in that game. Obviously, trade rumors have been surrounding him for a good month to 2 months now. And apparently last year they tried to ship him out for Trae Young, if you can believe it. But good for IQ. He gets a lot of pushback because of his contract. You don't blame him for that. You blame Masai for that and Bobby for that. They're the ones that gave him the deal. And I guess one of the positives about the deal, if you want to look at it that way, is the deal is the same deal for the next 3 or 4 years until the end of it. Right? So when the cap goes up, his contract looks better. And the dude is in the prime of his career. And you're already a team that can't shoot. So having his skill set, and I said this actually back at the first of the season, I said they need Emmanuel Quickley this year if they're going to succeed to a degree. Because he has the one skill set. Ingram doesn't have it. Scottie doesn't have it. RJ doesn't have it. Grady doesn't have it, especially Grady as of late or most of this year. Quickley's got the above the break threes that he's a threat to do. So we desperately need his skill set if we're going to be successful this year. Now, I do get the contract why they want to get off of it because they don't like it and they don't think that he's that level of player, but he's trying to respond to it by the sounds of it. Like this whole West Coast trip, he's been pretty good. And then in that game as well, Scottie was just, they had nobody that could guard Scottie. 26 points, 7 rebounds, 11 assists, 12 of 18 from the field. He was a plus 10 in the game. I'm going to get into more about Scottie later in the show. So this was a massive win over Golden State. You needed this win. You're now 2-1 on this trip. If you told me before the trip started we were going to go, let's just say we're going to go 2-3. We're going to lose the next 2 games. Because OKC, I'm going to bet that we don't beat them. Portland, there's a chance, but I'm not betting we're going to beat OKC, especially not with a full roster. If you told me we're going to go 2-3 on a West Coast trip, I'd sign up for that any day. This is a gauntlet of a trip. It's not easy. And the position that the Raptors are in right now with all of their injuries and with their lack of size and with the lack of shooting, it's really tough. So I give them a ton of credit right now. They're just out there playing, both ends of the floor. They had, mind you, a historic game for Emmanuel Quickly. You go in, and then the next night, which was last night, you played the Sacramento Kings. And Scottie Barnes, he looked like to be the best player on the court. And there's been a continuing trend of Scottie's play as of late over the last couple of weeks. They had no answer for him last night. In the mid-range, around the hoop, in transition, defensively. He had 4 steals last night, by the way. So Scottie last night had 23 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals, 1 block. So 5 stocks. Scottie has been very good lately. And I'll get back more to his dominance. Maybe we'll go into it now. So here's some statistics on Scottie in his last 5 games. And these are all NBA numbers, by the way. 24 points, 8 assists, 8 rebounds, almost 2 steals, and about half a block with about 53% shooting from the field. With all the injuries that have taken place on this team, his play has gone up. He's kept his team afloat. He's kept his team afloat, which is 4th in the East, which I think we're just half a game back of 3rd place, I believe. I'd have to double check here. We're either tied for 3rd or we are tied for 3rd place right now with the Knicks because we're both 7 games back. We've just played 2 more games than the Knicks. So we're afloat now. We're basically tied for 3rd place in the East. With all of the injuries that this team has had, and mind you, plenty of other teams have had more injuries than we've had. Boston obviously have been without Tatum this year. Orlando's been a good chunk of their year without Franz and Suggs. Philly's off and on with Embiid and George. Cleveland has been without Jared Allen and Darius Garland to some degree, but they're starting to pick it up now. The Knicks are going through something that's not great for them, that's for sure. Hopefully, I hope they don't get it together. I want to pass them, quite honestly, but they got some stuff they're going to be dealing with soon. So the Raptors are staying afloat, which is good. They're about 7 games back of the Detroit Pistons. Now, I don't think, is going to catch the Pistons per se, but there is a way you could get to 2nd place. Never thought I'd say that, but kudos to this team. Playing hard, both ends of the floor, and I got to give credit to the coaching staff. Funny thing is, I saw today, I didn't watch the video, but Samson and Trey on the Pull Up Trey podcast, I think there was a section of their show about Darko for Coach of the Year, which I find absolutely hilarious. I'm laughing at it because it's true. Is he going to win it? No. Joe Mazzulla is going to win it for Boston. But I'd have to say, if there was a top 5 in Coach of the Year candidates awards, Darko's probably right there. Obviously, JB Bickerstaff in Detroit, Joe Mazzulla, Mitch Johnson, maybe with the Spurs. It's probably Darko the next one. Got to give him credit. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but they've turned the defense around. The Raptors are basically a top 5 defense in the league without a rim protecting center and with all the injuries they've had. And you don't look at the personnel and say, boy, that's a lot of defenders they have on the team. It's Grady and RJ, Ingram, who's playing some defense this year. Mamu, Scottie plays some defense. Shed certainly does. Quickly actually has been pretty good this year. Last time I checked, he was 66th percentile, so he's been actually pretty good on defense this year, despite what he might get in some circles of being a poor defender. He actually hasn't been a poor defender this year. Not bad at all. So I got to tip your hat to the coaching staff. They're doing a good job on the defensive end. Offensively, they have to figure it out. Once they figure out the offense, you might be able to make some real noise in the East. There's a potential that they could. I think a trade would have to be made for them to do that. But Scottie Barnes is an all-star. I know I did the debate with Ken and Beyond, and we kind of went back and forth between Ingram and Scottie. And I think they chose Ingram, which I'm not so much disagreeing with him. I see their point. My position is I think Scottie is. Defensive player of the week, Eastern Conference player of the week. He's been somewhat trying to carry this team with all the injuries. He's doing it at both ends of the floor. He's having his best year, without question. Is there a small chance 2 of them can make the All-Star team? There's a small chance, but I think Scottie's going to get the nod, quite honestly. I look at some of the other power forwards in the East. I put Cat as – I know they don't really go by positions anymore, but Cat with the Knicks. Celtics still have Brown. Detroit will have Cade, maybe Dern. Scottie is the top – Scottie's team – Scottie's the top power forward on the best team right now. Mobley's right under him. Banchero's team is in 7th in Orlando. Jalen Johnson's having a great year, but Atlanta's in 10th. Raptors are in 4th. I think team record should play a little bit of a role in that. So I think Scottie's going to get the nod to be an all-star. And depending on where this team finish, who knows? Could he be all defense? I think he's going to be an all defense, providing he stays healthy. Could he be all NBA? Nah, it's a different discussion. That I don't know. I'm not willing to bet that, but I am willing to say that he's going to be an all-star this year, Scottie Barnes. That's what I think. Let's go to the next news of the day, and it's been everywhere. And we discussed it on Basketball Rewind. We hosted a trade show. Thank you for all the views on that. Basically, we talked about Anthony Davis, Domantas Sabonis, and Ja Morant. We kind of each made a case for which person. I basically made the case for Sabonis. It's not so much that I'm for or against it, but I see a basketball case for Sabonis. The Raptors, again, are a top 7 defense. We were bottom 20, I'd say no. From a physical standpoint, I don't really view us as this big physical team. Sabonis is physical. We're not a great rebounding team. Sabonis can rebound. Sabonis, he scores enough, rebounds enough. He's a great passer. Shot 42% from 3 last year. So he does have the ability to stretch the floor. We know how Darko likes to use Pirtle out of the high post and run actions through Pirtle. If you can do that with Pirtle, you could definitely do that with Sabonis. I also see it helping Emmanuel Quickly. Quickly does pretty well when he has Pirtle with him, setting good screens and rolling. I can tell you that I think Sabonis would be a lot better at that than Pirtle. Obviously, Pirtle's a little bit bigger, but he's not the skill of Sabonis doing some of this stuff. So there are ways in which he could really benefit the offense of this team. The defense is a different story. The question is, do you have enough defense to kind of hide his limitations? He's not a rim protecting center. Everybody knows that. Can you get enough rim protection from Scottie? Can you get enough rim protection from CMB? Even Ingram's been pretty good this year blocking shots. Because you desperately need a big. You did happen to run into Golden State that doesn't really have bigs. You ran into Sacramento. Again, they get the Reno kid who we passed on. But again, there's no dominant bigs that you're going to run into. A playoff series, you're going to run into a dominant big. It could be Joel Embiid. It could be Jared Allen, Evan Mobley. Could be Cat. Could be Bam. You're going to need a big in that scenario if you're planning for the playoffs. Anthony Davis, Domantas Sabonis, you're going to need a big if you're willing to give this a try and go for it. And the news is basically out about how the Raptors do have interest in Sabonis. I think he's a safe trade target. I think he can make this team better. The problem is, for a lot of fans of RJ, including myself, RJ's got to be given up. Quickly and Pirtle's not going to do that deal. I think Sacramento will take one bad contract. They're not taking two. So that's why you have to have RJ in the deal. It's basically RJ for Sabonis. It's not even for Pirtle at this point. If Pirtle came back, you get what you get from him this season if you're Sacramento. But RJ is the prize for Sacramento. But again, as I had mentioned before, one of DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine's probably got to go. LaVine's contract is way too hard to move. So you're probably moving DeMar. And you're replacing him with RJ. DeRozan will be traded to the Golden State or the Clippers. And then Sacramento would pick up RJ. But any deal involving an upgrade for big has to go through RJ Barrett. Quickly and Pirtle's, it's not so much the players, it's their contracts. Pirtle has to be included because of the contract. I think the front office was too early in giving Pirtle that extension. They didn't have to give it to him this last summer. You could have waited, observed this year how it went, and then you make a determination if he's due for an extension then. It's a really poor time that they gave him that extension and for the money they gave him for. I'm glad for Pirtle he got his money. But the guy is going to a back specialist, and you're without a starting center, and you're just putting a lot more risk for injuries to Scottie and recently CMB, who is now hurt. So you have to go and get a big. So we'll look to see what the team is going to do from that standpoint. But I'm impressed with this West Coast trip so far. Getting 2 wins, beating Golden State, beating, and then after such a high energy game at Golden State, and then go to Sacramento and do the same thing there. Kudos to them. They came out with 2 wins. If they lose the next 2, I'm totally cool with it, because you came out of the West Coast trip with 2 wins, and you needed those 2. You could have been 1-4 on the trip, quite honestly, but you might come out 2-3 or 3-2 if you beat Portland Friday night. Oh wow, I don't know if they're going to, because Portland's a bit of a matchup problem. They get a bigger team certainly than Toronto has. Clean would be a problem without Pirtle or with any big. So, anyways, thank you everyone. I'll be posting this soon. We'll see if the Sabonis stuff is going to come true or not. I think it's a good basketball move. It's a safe move. we'll see. Obviously, I want RJ to stay. I like to get him without giving up RJ, but sometimes you just need to be objective and be mindful of what you need to make your team better, but also money talks. And I think that's the biggest thing in this deal right now is money. Getting off one bad contract. Anyways, take care, people. Thank you.